kid pulled a knife on me and tried to stab me in kindergarten. I think it's never luck. I think it's more so like the right opportunity comes and you take advantage of it and it just hits. I honestly think Airbnb is not dead. There's stuff that people value in each market, and you have to understand those things so that you can have a successful Airbnb. Is your ego really that bruised and that screwed up that like you can't post because you feel like somebody's going to judge you or say something about you?
This is the Sphere of Influence podcast with your host, truly, Moni. Here we dive into entrepreneur journeys. We talk about how to be better entrepreneurs and also how to leverage social media to grow our business. And today we have a very special guest, and I hope I'm not going to murder your last name, so I'm going to give it a try. Today joining me, I have Patrick Schwertig. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's pretty good. I mean, most people don't even try to do the Polish way of doing it with Świątek, but yeah, definitely Switek works. So you can just go with that.
There you go. I was like, oh my gosh, I know I'm going to murder it. I know. I actually had to research it and figure out, okay, how can you pronounce it? But it's funny because I couldn't exactly find the way you spelled your last name. It came up with an A. So I think it's Swiate. T-E-K, I mean, instead of with an E. So I couldn't find the right pronunciation, which was kind of weird.
No, you're good. And I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining me. And for the people that might not know you, can you please give me a quick little intro?
Yeah. So I'm a short-term rental operator. Not only an operator, but I am an educator. I teach people how to get into the short-term rental space and basically reach financial freedom. I've helped dozens and dozens of people quit their jobs through short-term rental investing, and I post a lot on social media. So here we are.
Nice. And you're so modest because, I had to do a little digging for all my guests to make sure that I know who I'm bringing. And your journey started when you were very young. It's very impressive. You're in your early 20s, correct?
Yeah.
It is impressive. You've done so much. You started your first company when you were 14. You've done, you developed a game. You've launched a dating app. I think it was called Crush. You've done AR for a 3D menu. And I believe you also did a nonprofit. There's so much that you've done, and you're only like mid-20s, I believe, but your journey started when you were 14. It's impressive. Like, what can you attribute that to? And can you tell me more about the first company that you built?
Yeah. So, thank you. That's a really nice introduction. I did start at really early. I think a lot of that contributes just to I was always a problem solver, and I always liked money, and I liked money because it gave me access. It allowed me to get the ice cream that I wanted. Like I really enjoyed freedom. I think that's what the biggest thing was. It's ever since I was young, I just loved not being told what to do and to be able to be independent and generate my own money to actually live. I've never lived like a luxurious lifestyle. Even when I was making $40,000 a year in high school doing game servers and with my business, I didn't really spend it on anything drastic. All I did was just use it to game and just continue doing the things I really like to do. So it was never about making as much money as possible. It was more so about the purpose and the freedom that it gave me that allowed me to experience life in a more holistic way. And I learned that from a very young age. So, and really a lot of it also contributes to like who I was around. Like my parents were entrepreneurial too. They weren't the most successful entrepreneurs, but they worked really hard. They were solopreneurs. So they were really good at not hiring help and just doing it themselves. And knowing now that was never the way to grow and scale your business, because when you do that, you hinder the amount of success that you can have, because it's about who, not how, right? So my
Right.
parents were very much in the how. But one thing they did teach me is hard work. And I think that's one thing that I admire about them. And I'm sure people can relate, looking up to their parents in a lot of ways. So that was what I would contribute my success to.
That's amazing to have that kind of exposure and to be able to learn from somebody else's mistakes, right? Like they were already mentors
Mhm.
to you, not really. I mean, obviously they want to teach you and be the mentors, but just you being able to look outside the window and look at what they were doing and what was working. And I think it really gives you an upper hand at your success and how to do things, right? And so you've always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's just it was in my blood ever since I was young, and even going through high school, even going through college, I just always had that itch. I just always went back to creating solutions for problems that were already existing, and I can count back like all those times where I just saw problems and I just wanted to solve them. Instead of people complain about problems, I looked at problems and I was like, oh my God, let's change the way that it's done. Um, and I think that's just like partly genetic, but also, people look at, because right now, just fast forward to where I am today. Today, I own 30, or I own 6 short-term rental properties, and I manage 24 for other people. So 30 total. And I can only contribute that success, and people look at that and say, wow, like you're so young, how did you just start and make it in under 2 years, in 1 year? I did that in 1 year.
Right.
So people look at that and say, wow, like you must be special, you must be lucky. And really, it's like I look back at all the time since I was 14 years old, how many startups I started, how many companies I tried to get off the ground that didn't work out. So I think it's never luck. I think it's more so like the right opportunity comes and you take advantage of it, and it just hits. It just, everything clicks. Like you learn everything from your past mistakes, and you just get it right this time. And one of the best things that I've
Definitely.
learned is not try to create your own path. Sometimes it's better just to steal what somebody else is doing and just
Right.
do it the same way. It's not complicated. It's kind of boring,
Right.
but it works. Picasso
Yeah.
style. I feel like everyone steals a roadmap. You can tweak certain things, but at the end of the day, like I think copying is what gets you to where you need to be.
Definitely. Yeah. Like why reinvent the wheel if it doesn't need to be? And
Mm-hmm.
I think you touched on a very
Mm-hmm.
big part of success, right? People often forget and they only see you when you're at the very top, but they don't see everything that happened before that, right? Like all, just like you said, the businesses that you started that didn't take, that, weren't meant to succeed in that way, but it succeeded because it made you a better person, a better entrepreneur, right? So often we get stuck in the failures, and instead of using that to push ourselves forward, we use that to say, oh, it didn't work, like I'm no good, or it just doesn't work, right? So props to you for seeing those failures and those companies that didn't take off as the reason why you created this new journey. So that's amazing. And
Thank
so for
you.
the people that are really into like Airbnb, right? And what do you think is like the first challenge that people run into when people are thinking about doing Airbnbs?
I think the biggest challenge is people give up too soon. I think a lot of people take action, um, but not really calculate. Like they just don't take as much action as they should be taking, and they just give up too soon, when it's like, wow, like if you would have just talked to one more person, it would have been probably the thing that allowed you to get to where you need to be. A lot of people don't take action. I think that whole thing is really rooted even deeper in your mindset, like thinking that you don't deserve it, thinking that,
Oh.
it's going to be too hard or whatever. There's just a lot that goes on in the beginning from a foundational element standpoint that limits, it's like self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
So, and that's why a lot of times when I work with students, like I literally sit them down and go and unravel all those limiting beliefs, unravel all the different concepts or everything that they're thinking about, because the media pushes Airbnb busts and all these negative news, and having people think. The hardest part is having people think from a producer mindset as opposed to a consumer mindset. So let me ask you a question, Monica. If I told you that if you can have a Ferrari, I will give you a Ferrari right now, brand new, for $40,000, would you take it?
No.
You wouldn't take it. Why?
No. It's not part of my lifestyle. I would rather take the money and use that towards something else than the look of a Ferrari. It does nothing for me.
So, most people would say the same thing as you said. And that's the problem with like getting that mindset up. I would have taken that Ferrari. Why would I take that Ferrari? It's because I know that Ferrari is worth 200,000 plus. So when I buy that Ferrari for 40,000, I can flip it for a quick 200,000. That's like somebody coming up to me and handing me $140,000. But the way I look at it as the value of the car versus what the market value of that car is, knowing that it's an opportunity for me to make money. Now, most people think like you, Monica, which is not a bad thing at all. It's just how we're bred to think is, oh my God, why would I even need a Ferrari? Why would I need to spend money on that when I can spend it on something else? It's like the mindset shift has to happen where it's like, oh, that is an opportunity. It's the same thing with buying real estate. People say, I don't have enough money to buy real estate.
Right.
No, it's not a problem about not having enough money to buy real estate. I mean, if somebody came up with you with a $40,000 Ferrari, I can raise the money. I can find somebody to buy the Ferrari and then flip it for $200,000 and then make that $140,000 spread and give them a little bit of a cut. You see what I mean? So like that's creating value. That's a producer mindset. It's a market value mindset versus a consumer mindset of like, hey, this is not something I need because I don't need a Ferrari either.
Right.
Like,
That's amazing. I love that. Because initially I thought, well, what am I going to do with a Ferrari? Right. Like, why would I ever need a Ferrari? First, I'm not that type of person, but a Ferrari, I'm just like, what's the point? But it's that opportunity that I missed in looking at the value that it would have brought to me if I would have spent the 40,000 instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to keep the car. I love that.
Yeah.
So when you talk about mindset and you're saying people, because I just talked about this in another podcast, and it's so true. We have limiting mindsets sometimes when we're either comparing ourselves or just like you said, we think we're not good enough. So how do you think somebody is able to get over that or work towards a place where you're not there and that is not affecting your growth as an entrepreneur and in your life, period?
Yeah, I mean, it's a multi-step process. Like I said, like you have to think from a different perspective, and that's not a perspective that a lot of people think in. And I was telling you guys before, even like keep this in mind: the way that we're bred to be is not our own fault. It's the way that we're raised. Like we go to school. What do they teach you in school? They teach you that you can't cheat off of anybody. You can't copy other people's homework because that would be cheating. You sometimes can't even use a calculator, some resources to get stuff done. And then when you get into the real world, you think that like I have to do everything and I have to figure everything out and I can't copy somebody else's roadmap. A multi-millionaire mentor of mine told me that if he could start over at my age or even lower, like 20s, earlier 20s, I'm 26, what he would do is he would just find somebody that's doing it and just copy them. I said it before, and that's such an unconventional way of doing things, because school teaches you can't do that.
Right.
School teaches you have to figure it out your own. And so,
and there's no contributing with each other either.
100%. There's no collaboration. There's not, you can't collaborate with people on that test. No way. And then if you don't do well in that test, like you feel like you're not enough, and that's so false. And so that's my biggest thing, is like, we're bred to be like this, and we're bred to think a certain way. And so to answer your question, it's not like, oh, one session and we're over that.
Right.
It's reiterating this thing over and over again, and being in the right rooms with the right people that think differently, that allows you to start adapting that mindset to be able to get to that next step. And I do try my best with unraveling a lot of that. With my students, we have exercises that we go through that, like, hey, like, what are your roadblocks? What are the limiting beliefs? And in trying to like fight those limiting beliefs with facts, like trying to do the research, saying, okay, well, you're too young to get into real estate.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, okay, well, there's this 18-year-old that's doing it. So is that really a true fact? Or is that something you tell yourself, and you tell yourself every day, day in, day out, 100 times, a little voice in your head? Or is that little voice in your head wrong? It's about challenging those beliefs, right? And so doing that, along with understanding like the possibilities and being in bigger rooms with bigger visions, that is usually what does it. And that's why I develop my curriculum that way, where I have a conference at the end of the curriculum where you just meet with other big players in the space. That's just going to get your mind to the next level. That's exactly what gets you to that point where you can start unraveling those. But like I said, these are things that have been implanted for years.
Yes.
Years you've been telling yourself that there's no other way than the W-2 job way. Years you've been learning how to do things instead of who can do these things for me so that I can level up. It's all of these different success metrics that you've been just so ingrained in you, and it's hard to unravel those things. And like, I even struggle to this day with stuff. Like, I have a hard time selling people on my course. Like, I think when I was starting out, I thought having a course was like a scam. Like, it was a huge scam. Like, screw that. Like, I'm just going to learn it online. All the information's online. And then now I'm shifting my mindset where I'm like, holy crap, I'm doing a disservice for these people that I'm selling to, where I'm like literally trying to think of my mindset, when it's like, crap, they're buying 10,000 hours of my time. They save so much money going through the whole thing. So it's like, even now I'm still unraveling all these limiting beliefs. They're self-sabotaging me from getting to the level that I need to for success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's just what you said. It really comes down to the people that we're around, what we've been taught. The education system breeds workers, right? And that's how they get around having people to work and just get your paycheck and don't ask questions. And we definitely need to have a more open mind and be able to ask questions and really question certain things. I'm not even going to go there. I was going to bring the C word up, but I'm like, I'm not going to go there. We really need to stop being fearful of going against the grain. And for me, so I grew up in a very low socioeconomic background. And when I look at that and what we were taught and the limiting beliefs of like, oh, you don't have enough money to do X, Y, and Z, and just put your head down and go to work and make money and help your family. And you really are bred into just being a worker, So especially for those people, right? What would you say that could help them get out of that mind of, I don't have enough money, right? And I think I'm no longer in that mind because I know there's so much money out there that people have. There's people have money. You just need to make the right connections, right? But what would you say to those people, especially the ones that are from a low socioeconomic background, to get them out of that mentality of like we have to be workers and we can't do anything else, and there is no success for us, and we just have to take what we're given. I went back and forth with this person on somebody else's post about he was saying that pretty much we get what we work for, right? And I 100 agree with that. 100% agree with that, because I've come from nothing, like literally nothing. I was raised in South America. I was born here, came here when we were 13. My mom left.
Which country?
Ecuador.
Ecuador. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we came here 13 years old, lost everything. We had bags that were made of like just cloth, and
Wow.
the bags ripped. So we lost all of our clothes. We literally came here, had nothing. My mom left my dad within like, I think it was like a month or 2 months. And we went to, the first year we were here, we moved 8 times. I went to 8 different schools in the first year that we were here.
Wow.
And we finally landed on a cousin's garage. My uncle gave us his kids' little twin bed. It was like one of those cars beds. And me, my mom, my brother, and my sister, that's where we slept. And my mom worked tirelessly, 2 jobs, and so I come from that background, and I know that it is possible to break out of that. But for some people, they just don't believe in themselves, and they don't believe that they could do it. So what would you say to those people? Because I really like have them in my heart, and I wish sometimes maybe I'm not saying it correctly. So maybe your point of view and your way of saying something might reach them. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, no, that's a crazy story. And I'm not here to compete with that story at all, but I can resonate in the fact that my parents also came here as immigrants from Poland, and they were born there. That's the only language I knew. So when I went into middle school or kindergarten, I only knew Polish. And I went into ESL classes. I was in Chicago, so I was around a lot of Latinos, actually. Yeah. So I made really good friends with Latinos growing up, because I didn't know English and they didn't know English, and we were just kind of like
in this
hey
class.
guys. And I played soccer too, so like I think we got along there as well. And I learned a lot of Spanish words, and just like it's like pásalo. I know, like just like literally all that stuff in football, like we used to play. But anyways, a lot of swear words too. But I digress.
That's usually what we learn first.
Usually you learn the curse words pretty early. So anyways, I get that. Like I was also like grew up in like a shitty area of Chicago, and then my parents moved after a kid pulled a knife on me and tried to stab me in kindergarten.
Wow.
Yeah, like all thing. Yeah, but I grew up in a great area. I grew up in like the north suburbs. Well, like my sphere of influence. Once I went out of that bubble, my sphere of influence went to like, higher level individuals. Like I was around people that were, doing like my parents were just very middle class. They were entrepreneurs, but like they're entrepreneurs. They were like the home entrepreneur. My dad was he had a construction business, meaning like it was just him. He was a construction worker. Yeah. And then my mom helped with accounting for him and like, honestly cleaned houses. So that's what my mom did. And she still does to this day. And she was very embarrassed of that. She never wanted me to say it publicly. So me saying it on here, Mom, if you're listening to this, like, I'm sorry. But hopefully she's not.
No, she does not have to. I want to tell your mother that you're amazing for being a go-getter and doing it, and that should never be something that you're ever embarrassed of.
Well, no, she was embarrassed of me saying that she was a cleaner.
Right. No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that
there's
message to her.
Like,
about. There's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Exactly.
So.
And
You're an
so like for
amazing woman.
her, she was like, listen, I can get a job making like $15 an hour, or I can get a job making $30, $50 an hour if I clean fast enough or if I do things quick enough. So she was thinking
Right.
about it like that. And I was like, that was really smart. But
Mhm.
she obviously didn't hire a team, build the whole infrastructure. Same with my dad. But we were middle class. We didn't live a bad life. I think what was really interesting was when I went into this new sphere of influence, right? It's about the people you hang out with. That's what I'm trying to get at here.
Yes.
But when I went into new influence, I was around people that were like, all right, go to school, I was in a different world, which was like, different from like when I had the knife pulled on me and I found like heroin needles in parks and stuff like
Oh
that. It
my
was like a
gosh.
different world than when I moved into a new neighborhood at like first grade. And I was just like, all right, like here's this rich neighborhood. Like you're starting fresh as a bubble. But before, that was a different kind of influence than when I was there. And so when I was there, like my influence was like, okay, which is also dangerous, is get a W-2 or go to college, get a W-2 job, and just make money for the rest of your life. And like my parents wanted me to go to college. I hated college. I didn't want to go to college. I hated school. I was not a good student by any means. I didn't get into any good colleges. I went to community college. So my parents were like, okay, well, shit, like you're still going to have to go through college. And I always did the entrepreneurial things on the side because I was like, I can't devote to it because my parents always wanted me to go this conventional route. And I hated the W-2 route. I'll be honest, it was awful, and I just wanted to break free. And I think the biggest thing for that is like, it's not about getting into rooms with, and depends on who you are as a person. But if you're a very entrepreneurial person and you're living in a really crazy environment, you do have to get around. It doesn't mean that you have to get around people that are in the W-2 world or whatever, like, or better neighborhoods or something like that. Like if you want to do the route of the W-2 job, yes, those neighborhoods are great and those opportunities are fantastic. But I think it's more so about getting around the people that are opportunists. That's the big thing. And it's like, if your parents aren't, like my parents weren't opportunists in that way. My parents were very penny pincher. Like, let's save as much money as possible and let's save ourselves to death and just keep all this money under a mattress. That's what my parents were. I'm still, to this day, trying to freaking explain to them how that money in the bank account is not going to fucking do anything. But I can't like get it in their head. I'm like, oh, inflation raises 8%. And I just calculate. I'm like, oh, let's say that, Mom, you have X amount of money sitting in the bank. Your money is worth X amount right now. And she's like, no, it's not. Like, she just doesn't believe that. It's like a different mindset for them. For them, it's like save, save, save. And that's usually what it is when people make it into the middle class, is people go from like spending voraciously as like, now, if your parents are spending like crazy, that's also not a good people to be around. Right. So it's like, I'm going to say like, economically poor families tend to like spend a lot, or they work really, really, really hard, and then they save, they penny pinch, like saving. You know,
so they're two extremes always.
There's two extremes.
Yeah.
And both of those are not going to get you into the wealthy generational wealth that you need. You need to be around people that are investors. And that's why like I resonate with the rich dad, poor dad philosophy. Is I've actually been around, when I was around people, I actually had a friend that was really wealthy. And I met him and I was like, how did your parents do this? Right? Like I grew up, and this was like when I was like 17, 18. So I was like older. And I was like, well, I built this company, I've done this, but like, I'm trying to understand how to get to that next level. And he was really wealthy. And I remember being on his 120-foot yacht in Miami. We flew to Miami for like, cheap flights just to get there to like hang out with them. And they're like, okay, like come on to my 120-foot yacht with servers, like $10,000 a day. Gosh. I was like, damn, like, and everyone there was really wealthy. And I started just chatting them up. We're like, at this point we're like, we're like 18, 19, but we were already like drinking. So we were like, having shots with them and all that. And they were just talking their shit. And, and I was asking, I was like, what do you do? Like to everybody around. Right. And they're like, well, I'm the neighbor yacht, the guy that had another yacht was like, oh, like, yeah, I'm a attorney. And I was like, okay, cool. So that's how you make a lot of money, is being an attorney. He's like, no. He's like, I made a lot of money being an attorney and I invested it. And I make all my money through my businesses. I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, what do you do? Well, I'm a doctor, but I invest in real estate. Everyone had some kind of investment in some assets or producing income. And that's what I realized. Like, even if they were like a trade, like a doctor, lawyer, whatever, they used all of their money to invest. That was the only difference. And once I saw that, I was like, all right, like, I get it. It's a producer mindset. It's an investor mindset versus a consumer mindset. And it changed my life forever, because I realized that there's an abundance of money, and I realized that there's more to life than just being like trading your time for money. That is the key thing there.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter where you are in the spectrum. If you're in a rich area, poor area, or middle class area, the concept you have to grasp is the investing side of things, and the active versus passive income, right? So that's my whole thing.
And I think it's really hard for the people, especially like your parents. Like, my mom also came from nothing, right? So they're so used to not having enough, right? So when they do get it, they want to hold on to it, and it's so hard for them to have faith and release it. But if you are doing your math and you're doing the homework and you're really investing your time to figure out what are those venues that you could use to grow your money, then you could do it. You could use that money, and don't save it under the mattress, because it's not going to do anything for you, you know? So I love that. I love that message. And I really hope that all of you guys out there that are not making those opportunities for yourself, that you go out there and you start thinking about what are those opportunities that could get you to grow your money. You know, look at the people that are successful, find yourself a mentor, and figure out how to do it and how to make your money grow. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to Airbnb, for those people that are interested, like, and you start to do the research of Airbnb and focusing on a city, what would you say is the way to do research to find a place that will be successful on Airbnb, whether that be purchasing or doing Airbnb arbitrage?
Yeah, I think with understanding, I think the biggest thing is people have to understand two things that really dictate if a market's gonna be good or not. Well, three things. One is going to be whether that market actually makes money. That's going to be big. Like are people willing to are people traveling there? The second thing is more important than if people are going there. If people there that are going have money, I think what's more important is what are the traffic drivers to that area. So what are the reasons that people are going out there, and understanding, is it the local, there's local games. It's, it's the Cubs stadium and there's local games there, or is it, and so that's only going to be during a season, or is it because it's a summer spot, summer location, people vacation there. So like you have to understand what gets people into that area and what those traffic drivers are to make sure that there's enough traffic drivers for you to actually have a sustainable market to invest in. So people look at Joshua Tree, Orlando, and they'll tell me, they're like, well, it's too saturated. There's too many people there. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'd rather be in a place where there's people going to, there's a traffic shows that there's value there, and just make a better product.
Right.
You know, it's like the whole thing where it's like, why would you try to go somewhere where there's like nobody going and there's less competition, but there's also nobody going. So you're not
Right.
going to be able to succeed there. And then the third thing is going to be regulations. So regulations are a huge deciphering factor whether you can go to a place or not. And what I
Right.
mean by that is if the place has no regulations, I will not even touch it with a 10-foot pole. And the reason for that is because of Dallas. Look what happened in Dallas. Dallas had no regulations. And the moment that all these people started buying these really expensive properties or doing, arbitrage or whatever, and almost overnight, your business is shut down because they started implementing regulations. And you're not abiding to those regulations. I'd rather be in a market where they have regulations in place, but it's good regulations that I can abide to and I can make work, and then going into that market and making money doing that. You see what I mean? Because then they can't just drop my fucking permit like that. They can't do that. They can only adjust certain things, but they've granted me access to that property, and it makes it a safer investment if you're buying, but also makes it safer arbitrage because overnight you can just kill all your money. And I've seen that. When I used to work at a bond stay is a company that did arbitrage. I helped them scale between 200 to 1,000 plus units. And so there I understood pretty much how they operate from getting a lease for X amount of dollars and making more money on top of that lease. The thing when COVID hit, it was red. It was everything was screwed, right? And when regulations hit for specific markets, I saw how that impacted the business as well. And so they, from an early point, understood that we're going to make this a sustainable business by operating legally and making sure things are done right so that we get the permits, do everything legally, do everything kosher, because that's how you build a sustainable business. Can you get away with it? Yes, you can. You can absolutely get away with doing arbitrage or whatever in an area where you can't do it. But do you really want to build a business off of that platform? Probably not.
Right.
So I advise to always go to Google and type in STR laws and then a city name. And that's usually where I'll find out a little bit more information. If I want to really dive in, I'll call the city and ask them, and they'll give me a lot more insight. Now, there are platforms that help with understanding what kind of regulations are where. If you've ever heard of STR Insights, STR Insights is my good buddy, Kenny. He basically analyzes across the whole country, all the different markets through a data perspective, where the highest ROIs are. And then you can actually go and pick based on what parameters you want to pick. Like maybe it's only West Coast markets, or only Midwest markets, or specific ROI markets, or markets with low, medium, or high regulation. So I'd probably go into medium and low regulation markets, not markets with no regulations, and just go from there. So that kind of thing, just deciphering what kind of market you want to operate in, because that's going to kind of help you with your strategy and what you're going to do moving forward.
Definitely. And it's funny because when you think about, you want to have your Airbnb, I think people might want to focus on those areas where there is no laws, because you're like, well, I'm not going to run into any problems. But yeah, by doing that, then you're making yourself more susceptible to, hey, when they do apply the laws, then you don't know how stringent they're going to be. So it's safer to take those areas that do have the limitations and the regulations, but at least you know what you're getting into, right?
Right.
And then another thing that, I don't know much about it, but somebody I talked to, they mentioned that they had an Airbnb in an area where they're not allowed. And I don't know. To me, it's a bit risky, right? Because you never know when they're going to shut you down. But what is your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather build a sustainable business. Why invest, let's say, $40,000, $50,000 into furniture into a place that is going to probably make your money back, but you're doing all that work, and then if they shut you down, it's like you're gone. and you're
Right.
done. Like it's not worth it. Especially with arbitrage, co-hosting, it's a little bit more safe. But even then, like you're relying on your revenue. Like imagine you're co-hosting and you're co-hosting in an area that's not good for business. Like you can't do it, like illegal, and you're just doing it, and you quit your job because you're like, wow, I'm making $5,000 a month or whatever, and then all of a sudden you just ban it all, and it's like your income just goes and you lose it
Right.
all. So it's like it's risky, and I rather build sustainable long-term businesses versus businesses where I'm gonna, it's short, quick money. I don't believe in quick money. I believe in long-term wealth.
Yeah. And so I think you disagree with that because you said it before, but for the people that are saying there's an oversaturation in the market for Airbnb and the Airbnb is dead. Like, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, people can think what they want. I think more for me. I honestly think Airbnb is not dead. And genuinely, the numbers don't really. I mean, people show me numbers all the time. They're like, look at this chart. That this chart was like going around like 50% decrease in revenue or whatever in places like
Right.
Scottsdale. So when you really look at those, that's a whole market view, right? So there's still people that are crushing it. So what happens when saturation happens is the middle gets squeezed out. So it's either you are going to be a budget accommodation and you're competing on price and it's a downward spiral, or you're a valuable accommodation, value, right? Like unique, something that's like better than anything else. And then you're going to stand out across the crowd and you're going to be an asset that's going to make more money because
Right.
the traffic drivers are there, right? So it's like that's what's important. So I don't. Basically, what that means is you have a mediocre Airbnb and you're not making money. That's the people you see complaining, is the people that didn't buy right or didn't understand their guest avatar, their guest personality, and bought a property that was like in a beach town that's 20 minutes from the beach, and people don't go 20 minutes from the beach, they go 5 minutes from the beach. You see what I mean? Like you have to understand
Yeah.
your market. So
Right.
that's what I'm gonna say.
So are you saying then the secret of having a successful Airbnb would be to really go above and beyond creating that
And research what
experience?
works. Like when you go into the Smoky Mountains, there's no, like, you can make money doing other avenues, but you're going to make the most money having a cabin. That's what people want to stay in. They want to stay in a cabin. It's when you're in Vegas, you got to be as close to the strip as you can, right? Like there's stuff that people value in each market, and you have to understand those things so that you can have a successful Airbnb.
I love it. And so you're doing a lot of education, and you mentioned that there was an event coming up for you. Can you tell us more about what to expect from that? Why should people go and join it? And who is going to be talking, if you could talk about it?
Yeah. So what you expect is Monica to go and
Ooh.
be there. We were just talking about it before the call. Yeah, I mean, I'm putting on an event. It's going to be 250 people, and it's going to be a really fun time. It's in San Diego. The VIP gets a whole day, full access to speakers on a yacht, and it's going to be with the sunset tour. It's beautiful. It's awesome. And if you want to take advantage of this, then STR200 is the code. You get $200 off. You can find the tickets at str-nation.com, and feel free to pick one up. I'd love to see you there. But if you can't make it, no worries. We do them once a year. It's no biggie.
And
Yeah.
who do we have speaking there? And like, what kind of value are you guys bringing to the people? I will definitely be there. So whoever is there, whoever's coming, I will see you there. And if you're taking advantage of that $200 off, hey.
Yeah. 100%. And so we're going to have Bill Faith. Bill Faith is the best marketer in our industry. He knows how to he basically knows how to sell with Facebook ads. He knows how to make the best listing as possible, how to deal with the guests and have the amazing guest experience. Like, he's an OG in this industry for a long time. And he's got big group of people that follow him religiously. We're also going to have Ivan. Ivan's also really big, and he's been pretty much with Ryan Panetta's team, like crushing it, telling a lot of people about how he started with arbitrage. Arbitrage is a great way to get in. We're going to have Natalie Palmer. Natalie Palmer is a local California favorite, where she's been in the co-hosting sphere, right? She's going to be talking about how to scale and build a co-hosting company. We have people like Rich Summers, who's going to be talking about boutique hotel investing, how to get into hotels, from Airbnb to hotels, and how to operate them like Airbnbs. And then we're going to go into things like Avery Carl, who's an OG in this space as well. So she's going to be talking about where to buy the properties and what are the best areas to buy. She has the biggest agency for short-term rental agents. So to the experts in every market that's a short-term rental market, she has that. So there's gonna be a lot of people there. There's gonna be a lot of value, and I'm really excited. I mean, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna speak on stage. I'm gonna share my story if you're interested in that. But yeah, it's gonna be full of value, and it's full of like networking. There's gonna be a lot of networking, breakout sessions, and all that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major things about going to events. It's not only the value that it's bringing, but also the chance to network with people. And just like you said, expand that sphere of influence that we have around us, to make those connections, to create like more paths for us to get to where we want to be, right? And then all the people that you're touching on, for those people that are afraid of, hey, committing to a house, to actually purchase a house, to turn it into an Airbnb, doing something like Ivan does, which is, Airbnb arbitrage. Like you have many different options to learn from this at this event. So if you are thinking of just doing ProHost or Airbnb arbitrage or buying, it seems like this is going to be the event to be in and to get all this knowledge. So make sure you guys check it out. And as far as your social media, I do see you present on social media. What is your take on like social media? How do you use it to grow your business?
Yeah, I mean, I just share, and I document a lot, like what I'm doing in my life. I share a lot of this stuff. I mean, I'm in Content Empire or Wealthy Creator, which is Ryan Panetta's program. So he's taught us a lot about how to share value. But that's what I am. I'm just about pushing as many videos out as I can and sharing as much as I can. And hopefully, just like my goal really, and I do a podcast and all that, but my goal really is like, if I can impact one person, and I'm speaking to you, that one person, and that person takes action, then it's all worth it to me. I think that's the big thing. And look, my podcast doesn't have that many listeners too. I mean, probably around like 100 to 200 like active, which is like a lot when you think about a room of 100 people. That's a lot of people. But it's just like we're so bogged down with these numbers and saying like, okay, well, you should have like 10,000, 100,000. But at the end of the day, it's like if I can impact one person, that's all that matters. So that's my mentality. And when you have that mentality, you stop caring how many people you're reaching out to, because all I need is that one person. Yeah, that's all I need. So
I 100% agree with that. It's funny because that's all we hear, right? The numbers, the followers, the likes, but I think we lose focus on what's really important. And just like you said, we're talking about people's lives that are being affected. And at the end of the day, that's what we really should focus on. It's that business that you're going to help, or that person that you're going to forever change their lives. You don't know how them joining your program will change generations, right? So instead of focusing on numbers, we definitely should be focused more on the people, the humans, right? So
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
And I thought I didn't have a course for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then realized I'm doing people a disservice by not having this out there. And it's genuine. Like, people's lives are changed forever. And so that's why the whole mission came about. And so the same goes with sharing. Like, is your ego really that bruised and that screwed up that like you can't post because you feel like somebody's going to judge you or say something about you? Or like you care about the likes so much with oh, it has to be, I need to have like 20,000 followers, or I don't care about doing this. Like, who gives a shit? Like, start focusing on literally speaking to that one person and just make that your goal. And I honestly have been so much happier since I've done that, because not only do I feel like I'm doing, I'm helping people out, I'm also enjoying it, because it's less pressure to get to like 20,000, 100,000. I could just help one by one. So. Yeah.
I agree. Awesome. And so before we end, I have a quick rapid round for you. And we'll start with what is one thing you wish you knew before you started your journey?
I wish I knew you could just copy people and just do that and pay for people's time. I just didn't use it ever. I would have been successful a lot faster, probably in my early 20s. I just never did.
You say like you're so late. You know what? That's one thing I want to add to that too.
Yeah.
Because I just posted about this. Yeah, comparison is a thief for sure.
Joy.
And talking about numbers, right? Like, don't think you have to be at a certain point by a certain age. Like, I think we have been passed down that we need to be, married or have kids, and all this pressure from other people that are not living our lives. Just live your life for you, Right. But if you get there, by the age of 20 or earlier or later, know that it's okay.
Yeah, 100%. I'm more at peace with that than I was when I was younger, but I still have it a little bit, as you hear.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and you're an amazing, successful entrepreneur. So you're killing it. You're killing it. What is the most challenging project you've worked on, and what did it teach you?
Oh, that was a good question. That's a good question. Most challenging project I worked on is this is gonna be so dumb, but it's myself. Probably myself, like, as a project as a whole. Like, the fact that I was in such a low place when I got fired from 3 jobs in 1 year, and having to work on myself was the hardest thing. It was harder than even working with other people and changing their mindsets, changing my own mindset when I was at a low place where I literally cried on the phone to my mom because I thought that I just failed. And like, I literally just thought I was going to go back to Chicago and have to live with my parents at the age of 24. And I was like, this is the end of the world. God, it was just such a dark time where I just felt no purpose in life. It's such a dangerous time. I think that's the biggest project, if that counts.
Right. Yeah,
my own self was the hardest project.
And what did it teach you?
But it taught me that no matter what you do, just because you've made success doesn't mean you can't get kicked back down. Because I made it. At least for a child my age, I made $40,000 a year. I had a company. I was a big boy, big boss. And it's like, doesn't fucking matter. I still got kicked down. And I still, and I know that this could happen again. I'm at a high right now. I'm doing really well for myself, but another 2007 crash and I'm back to zero. And that could happen again. That's probably the biggest thing I learned.
And we didn't talk about that. So you were an employee and you got fired. Tell me more about that.
I got fired 3 times. Well, the first time was because of COVID, so I guess that's a layoff. And then and then I found a job like 2 months later, and then I got fired from that job because I was a shitty employee. And I found another job, and I got fired from that job. It's just like I was at a low point where I'm like, nobody wants me. Like, people just didn't. I tried different jobs, and I was like, dude, these are easy jobs. I'm not getting paid a crazy amount. Like, why am I not doing well? And it's because I was just a really bad employee. I just really was so bored at work. I needed some stimulation. I love the side projects, the excitement, the growth. Like, that's what I love to do. I didn't like to do these small little things on the side.
Yeah. And then I think also I'm a believer that, everything that is happening in our lives has a greater purpose, and I think you had to go through those experiences to pull yourself out of that 9 to 5 job and create something that was fulfilling for you. So,
Exactly.
yeah. What is the best piece of advice you've received as an entrepreneur?
I believe the best advice was that most people think, and this is like a multi-million-dollar mentor of mine. He multi-millionaire, really smart guy, whatever. And he told me, he was like, Patrick, you don't have, because I was like, oh, I need to make the right decision. I have to like do all this like right now, right here. And he told me, he's like, listen, man, it's not like being an entrepreneur is not about being brave 100% of the time. It's about being brave in the right moments to change your life completely. And I was like, interesting. So it's like there are times where you have to step up and make a brave decision, but that might be 30 seconds. It doesn't mean you have to constantly be brave and like almighty and all this. Like you have to be courage and do all these crazy things. It's like sometimes all it takes is that one decision or that one moment to be brave to change your life forever. And that moment for some people, that could be that could be in a moment where, like, for instance, you could show up every day and do good in the world, but let's say there's a situation where, like, for example, somebody's getting bullied and you have an opportunity to step in. Like that is like the 5-10 seconds where you can be brave for somebody else. You know what I mean? Because that could change their life. Like they could be suicidal. So it's like that like changed my perspective on life, where it's like I don't have to always be on. I don't have that pressure of like always having to be on top of my world, but like I take the right moments and I step up. And I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. So. And that reminded me of something that you, I can't remember where I read it, but it's something that a quote that you said, and which I think it's really, really important. And it was something around the lines of like the best leader that you could be, it focuses on leaving people better than they were or something like that. So I think.
Yeah. It's about breeding other leaders. So that's the big thing.
And not only leaders, but places too, right? Like, just like you said, it was better. I think it was people and places. So just finding them and leaving them better than you found them. So I thought that was very beautifully worded. So what do you think is one of the most satisfying aspects of what you do?
Seriously, I mean, it's the most selfless things are the most satisfying. I mean, it's time and time proven again, but like just seeing somebody win is probably the most satisfying thing. And the story of that is my podcast. I've just been putting out my podcast like it's nothing. Like there's no way people are even like listening, but like I'm just doing it because consistency. Eventually I'll make the 100,000 listeners, right? I'm just going to be consistent. And then I had somebody come up to me and say that my podcast changed their life. And they said they haven't seen their child for the last 8 of the 10 birthdays that she's had because he works so much, like works 80 to 100 hours a week. Wow. And he says he doesn't spend much time with his daughter. And he realized, yes, he makes good money and it helps support the family and does all that, but like his time is more valuable. And he realized that through the podcast. Like I just mentioned something in one of the episodes, and I've said a few things that resonated with him that allowed him to go out there and change his life. I was like, damn, that like really hit me in the heartstrings. That was like, whoa. And that's when I realized, I was like, okay, I got to take this podcast shit a lot more seriously. Every time that I don't put out a podcast for 1 week, I'm like, I'm letting somebody down.
Right.
And that motivates me.
That's awesome. And the last one, if you had a message for any new entrepreneur out there, what would it be?
Just get started. Just start failing. Start, you got to get on the bike and start pedaling away and trying, because you're not going to make any progress just sitting on the sidelines.
100%. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today. For the people that might want to follow you, where can they find you?
I think the best place is going to be Instagram. If you type in Patrick, Patryk, spelled unconventionally, and then underscore SWIETEK, you'll be able to find me. And, you can also join my Facebook group, STR Nation, if you're interested in short-term rentals. It's STR Nation, Space Nation. And it's a good group that's helps you expand your mindset in short-term rentals. And yeah, ask me any questions. I'm an open book. So
Guys, thank you so much for listening and joining us today. I really, really hope, with every podcast, I always hope that the message reaches whoever needs to hear this. But most importantly, apply it, right? It doesn't work if you don't apply it. And I think I've shared with you guys already before that my thing for reading books is whenever I read something, I need to apply 3 things out of it. So I ask you today, whatever it is that you heard, you go and apply at least one thing that you heard today. And thank you so much for listening. If you guys are enjoying this, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you, Patrick, again for joining me today. And I will
thanks
see
for
you
having me.
guys on the next one.
Peace.